I think the number one mistake leaders make is they don't have empathy. Today, there are some that think that empathy is a weakness. It's a failing of some sort to be able to see the other person's point of view. I'm an attorney, and the first thing they teach you in law school is how to argue the other side's case. Because if you can't, you're going to lose your own case because you don't know what they're going to say and what they're going to do. You have to be able to see it from both angles to make sure you can represent your client. It's the same thing in government. You've got to know what the other side thinks. You can disagree with them. In fact, you're more effective if you disagree with them if you know how they think.
You just heard from Kentucky Secretary of State, Michael Adams. I'm Todd Faulkner, and welcome to Leadership Magnified. Now, in his second term in office, the Republican is from Western Kentucky and a graduate of McCracken County Public Schools. He's also the first in his family to earn a bachelor's degree, attended Harvard Law School, and worked for various politicians. He then ran and won the race for Secretary of State in 2020. Adams later won re-election, with his second term ending in January 2028. He's term limited, so what now? Don't worry, we asked. And by we, I mean my coworker and friend, Bryce Patterson. You know Bryce as host of the Crossroads Suncast, another podcast with PMG Studios. When I had to go out of town unexpectedly, Bryce stepped in to talk about leadership with Secretary Adams. Here's their conversation.
I'm Bryce Patterson, in for Todd Faulkner, and I have Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks.
So we want to start by asking you about your kind of roots. Is there anyone that really stands out to you as a mentor that has helped you to grow as a leader, both personally and professionally?
Well, my grandfather was my role model. I say was. He just passed away a week ago. I was here 2 days ago to speak the eulogy at his funeral. And he brought me up in a Christian upbringing and was active in his community, was a civic leader, a business leader, and also someone who was engaged politically. And he taught me that you should be all those things. You should be a good dad and a good husband, but you should also give back to your community. And for him, that wasn't running for office, but for me, it was. But I try to take his moral lessons and his urging to give back and to share and to use your talents to serve God and to serve your community, that left a huge impression on me.
So I want to get to your role in public life in a minute, but let's start with when you're working with your staff, how do you approach your kind of leadership style? How would you describe your approach in that realm?
So one thing that I do that's kind of unique is I don't have a chief of staff. I have sort of a wagon wheel management style where anyone has direct access. No one has to go through someone else to talk to me. Anybody who works for me can come right in my office without an appointment and get my attention and get me on something. That sounds chaotic, but really it isn't. In real life, people don't all come in at the same time. But to me, I don't want to have lines of authority that potentially reduce someone's access to me if they've got something that I need to know. So that's important. The other thing is I've not hired political people. Every single person I hired is from the private sector or from government. I didn't hire anyone from politics. I hired people who are just good servants, and they're very wonkish. I didn't even hire a political a consultant to do my communications. I hired someone from television who's straight-laced. I don't want any politics in my administration. I want to just do the right thing, and if we have to do politics to survive doing the right thing, we'll do that. But we have total professionals. You would never know what party they even belong to by seeing them do their job. Obviously, I have my own conservative values, and that reflects on my policy that I adopt. But the way that we deal with our job is by the book.
And I want to ask about that, right? We live in such intensely divided times. How does that shape your role as a leader, and how do you lead for everyone in such a partisan era?
So there's a famous saying by John Boehner, who was Speaker of the House years ago. He said, leader without followers is just a guy taking a walk. That's very true. I learned that leadership is literally getting other people to do something, and that's really hard. This is a time when people don't really want to listen and don't really want to learn, and certainly don't want to second guess their assumptions. And so many of the speaking occasions I get invited to are rallies where there's already a viewpoint, and your job is to egg people on to express that viewpoint. There are very few places I get to go and say, well, think about this for a second, or maybe we're wrong. Those are words you're just not allowed to say in politics. And you really can't make good decisions if you don't second guess your thoughts and look for holes. So I'll give you an example. I always thought that expanding voting access was a mistake, that we should make it very restrictive and that would be more secure. And then I just looked at the facts and I was totally wrong. It actually makes the election more secure when you have more time to run it and you can watch for errors, you can correct them. Uh, you can add a location here or there based on what you see, right? Or another poll worker and another check in. When you have more time to run your election, you do a better job and it's more secure and it's less likely to be disrupted. So yeah, I was wrong. I learned from my mistakes. I think it's really important to keep an open mind and be based in facts. You can keep your values. We live our values every day, but we still have a fact based way of doing business.
I want to continue on that thread for a minute. What is a mistake you see young leaders making today? And, if there's any examples of your kind of learning curve of getting where you are today, what have you seen and how have you kind of lived through those things?
I think the number one mistake leaders make is they don't have empathy. Today, there are some that think that empathy is a weakness. It's a failing of some sort to be able to see the other person's point of view. I'm an attorney, and the first thing they teach you in law school is how to argue the other side's case. Because if you can't, you're going to lose your own case because you don't know what they're going to say and what they're going to do. You have to be able to see it from both angles to make sure you can represent your client. It's the same thing in government. You've got to know what the other side thinks. You can disagree with them. In fact, you're more effective if you disagree with them if you know how they think, right? So it was helpful to me to go to law school at Harvard, which was very left leaning, and I'm very right leaning. And it made me more effective at selling my ideas, my viewpoints by hearing what the other side thought. But it also just makes me a better person if I can realize how my policy is going to affect somebody. I can maybe, hopefully, find a way to address that. So, for example, when I pushed photo ID to vote, my first session, I made sure that we put money in there that people could get a free ID if they couldn't afford an ID. They used to be $23. And for some people, $23 is a lot of money, and they may not vote if they have to pay money, pay a poll tax to get an ID so they can vote. So we paid for it. We said, we'll do it. It'll be free. And we had the highest turnout we ever had in an election because we had all these people who had no ID that could vote. But also, now they had an ID, they could get a bank account, right? They could do things they couldn't do before that would change their lives and help lift them out of poverty. So empathy is really important for that.
I want to ask about the impact that you have on people's lives day to day as Secretary of State. What do you do that people might not necessarily realize that you do that, moves the ball forward or impacts their day-to-day lives?
So the elections is easily the biggest part of my job and the biggest challenge and the part that I spent my life preparing for as an election law attorney my whole career. But honestly, the part that people see the most is the business side. I'm also the chief business official of Kentucky. Every business in Kentucky, every huge one, every global one, plus every mom and pop dry cleaner, they all own cleaners, and you name it, they all register and report with me. And every single day I go out in the state somewhere or I'm at the office, I have someone come up to me who thanks me that our website's so easy to use, that they can file their paperwork and they can pay their fee and they can do what they have to do to run their business. And they can do it once a year and it takes 5 minutes and it costs $15. And they're so grateful to have that capacity. Law firms, paralegals thank me all the time that it's easy to find records on our site. So, those aren't things that I personally do. They're just part of our office. But those little things make someone's job easier, make it easier to start a business, hire an employee, do your thing. That's important to us too.
What advice do you have for someone who wants to either become a leader or kind of grow as a leader, either, in government, in the private sector, wherever in their lives?
I would say read. So I'm the parent of a college age daughter, and she's very bright, makes A's, but I wish she read more. And I get 100 resumes for an opening of a job in our office, and 99% of them will have typos on the resume and won't be able to quickly express words. And that worries me. One of the great advantages I have is I was very bookish as a child, and I read a lot of books, and I learned how to not just know facts I read, but also learn how to make sustained arguments and speak in an intelligent way. That really comes from reading because that's how reading is laid out. It's not like watching quick videos on your phone. It requires a thought process. If you want to be able to make good decisions, you have to be able to read. And if you want to persuade other people effectively, you have to be able to do that. The TikToks are great at egging you on to believe what already you believe, but to really challenge your thinking and get to the right answer, you have to have a more reading-based approach. So I would encourage people, be old school, pick up a newspaper, pick up a book.
I want to ask about you reading I'm also a big reader.
Oh, good.
Are there some books that you feel like have really shaped you as a person, as a leader, or just shaped your perspective or your worldview?
So the Bible, not even close. It's certainly the most influential
Sure.
book in my life. There are many others. There's no really one. Uh, I will tell you, I read a book called Bowling Alone several years ago that really shaped how I look at society today. In short, it's about how TV and the internet have made us shelter at home and not go out, visit friends, visit family, form connections. And I think about that every day. I really want to see our state prosper. And part of how we do that is having those ties, being close knit and supporting each other, where a lot of the polarization comes in and the hate and the bigotry and even the violence in politics is coming from us just not understanding each other.
So, last question. We always kind of end these by having a little bit of fun. How do you roll in your copious spare time? Obviously, how do you relax? How do you unwind?
So I love to go. I don't get a lot of mornings off, unfortunately, but sometimes I'll get a Saturday morning off where I don't have a breakfast of some sort, and I'll go into my basement. I will close up all the doors, and I will put on old '80s rock albums on a CD player hooked up to an amp, and I will just rock out on the drum set. I've played drums for almost 50 years, and I'm just now getting the hang of it. But it's good exercise. I sweat at the end of it. If I play for an hour or two, it's great cardio to just rock out to all the Motley Crue and Van Halen and Rush and all these old dinosaur bands. That's a guilty pleasure I have. My favorite thing to do with my daughter is go fishing. We've done a lot of fishing here on Kentucky Lake over the years and other places. It's just so relaxing to get out on the water and just to have alone time and not have your phone going off and just be able to relate to somebody, have good conversations. It's important to me too.
Is there anything for, folks who are watching or listening or what have you? We know you as an elected official. We know you as a public figure. Is there anything you wish folks knew about you just as a person?
Uh, I would say that I'm multidimensional, and it's a good thing. A lot of politicians are just cartoons. You know what they're going to say. Uh, I've tried not to be that way. Maybe people would like that if I were, but it's okay to be a little more complex than that and to be fact based and to want to have the right answers, to really care about the state, about improving education, improving our economy, and to actually occasionally even talk to a Democrat. I've been effective in my job pushing Republican stuff I ran on because I've been able to work when I have to with a Democrat governor. It doesn't make you a bad person to serve everybody. It makes you better at your job. So I just want to encourage people that, look, if you want 20 people who are one dimensional and easily parodied, go for it. But have a few adults in the room here and there who can be part of the glue that keeps us together and moves us forward.
Okay, actual last question, I think. Any thoughts on the governor's race?
Yeah, I have several thoughts on the governor's race. I don't have any announcements to make today. I'm seriously considering running in 2027. I've not made a final decision. I won't imminently. I'm going to let this year's primary play out before I worry about next year's primary. I'm certainly paying close attention to that. And I'm also watching some fellow secretaries of state in other states who are running. I want to see how well they do. Uh, in 2022, we had 3 secretaries of state that ran for Senate and governor. They all lost. This is a tough job to run for a higher office from because you make people mad when you serve everybody, but that's your job. So I'm going to see how those folks do. I'm also going to see how much I think I can raise. It's a very expensive prospect to run, but I get strong encouragement every single day.
That's this week's pod. If you liked it, tell a friend and share it on social media. Bryce had a great conversation with Secretary Adams on a host of other issues, including the upcoming midterms, the rise of registered independents, and voter ID. That episode of the Crossroads Suncast is out now. Video and sound by Senior Executive Producer Morgan Weigel and Chief Photographer Mason Watkins. Editing by Brian Clapp. Until next week, stay safe, friends.